You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
It's a workout.
It is. And everyone needs a midday workout, right?
It's a workout each time you do that. You know, the challenge is every time because I do it forcefully, sometimes you can just raise your hands, like when you're in school, but sometimes when you really raise them, it pulls your shirt out of your pants. Every time I start these things, I got to tuck in my pants again. You're killing me.
You know what? When you do that, I think you mentioned this on one of your podcasts, when you put both of your arms up in the air, there's just something about that energy that flows through your body. It just changes everything.
It really if you're going into a big meeting or if you're doing anything it not only changes you, physically, you'll just feel the blood flowing and all that stuff, but
right.
Mentally you become a different, I think it raises testosterone. I think if women did this, they would start growing mustaches. I think it's
I think you should not be a doctor of any way, shape, or form, nutritionist or anything.
It changes everything. Well, that's right. If there's one thing that I don't understand, it's women. I really don't. I just can't. I can't figure, in a good way, thank goodness, because you got always, as long as you're married, you always got something to learn every day. And believe me, the other day I was. I was working from the house and my wife usually wakes up a little later, but this time she woke up a little earlier. And so I like my morning time. Sometimes I get like 35 minutes by myself where I could just, get my head straight and all that. But this day she woke up. And so we walked from the bedroom together, from the bedroom to the kitchen. And which isn't all that far. It's just a house. We went from the bedroom to by the time I got there, I found out 4 things I was doing wrong. Who knows what I could do.
Well, you were getting life training when you woke up.
I was getting life training.
Is that what inspired your post on LinkedIn? Because you talked about how, most people think, and this got all kinds of reaction on LinkedIn, is that most people think they suck at sales. Most people. And so you basically said, listen, if you're married, you are actually a fantastic salesperson because you have negotiated with a person to spend the rest of their lives with you.
With you exclusively. I mean, that's a big contract. It really is. And it's always the best example of sales and how it works. And it's one of those things that you get to choose. At least here in America, you get to choose who that life partner is, whatever. And I remember specifically, my dad gave me a lot of advice, but this one was like the Mac Daddy. And he loved America, and he loved the idea when he came here. He always had that little accent that I talk about. But he'd say, when I was going off into business, he said, Danny, in this country, he says, you could fail in business 1,000 times. America will always give you another chance to start fresh. He says, in business, you can make a lot of bad decisions, but you make 1 or 2 bad personal decisions and you'll pay for it for the rest of your life. What he was saying was, find the right partner. marry the right woman and keep on. He would always coach me. He says, keep on doing the things that you take to get them. Keep on doing those things to keep them. And so when I met you, I found out that you have this podcast talking about that same thing.
Right. Yeah.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Power Couples Rock. And I can't think of a better segue. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If you were a real producer, you probably have something that you could put up front right now for everybody to see Power Couples Rock to promote your podcast.
You know, later in the show, we definitely have something that we can do. But I really would love to get our guest on, because I can't think of a better segue.
Yes.
We're sitting here talking about marriage. We're sitting here talking about Power Couples Rock. We need to sit here with the person who's responsible for that. So without further ado, would you please welcome to Dan Jordan Live, my friend, current executive pastor at Grace Snellville, also corporate business consultant, Mr. Carlos Greene. Welcome to the show, sir. Yes.
Yes. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're awesome. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming here today. This is big. I think that I love your podcast. By the way, I should tell you, it's like a family thing that we do together on Sunday nights. We turn on the Power Couples Rock podcast. And if there's one thing I can make, is it okay if I give you an unsolicited suggestion?
Please do it.
You need a theme song, because we've already created it in our house, and I might as well give it to you. But the baby. Have you ever heard of Baby Bottle Pops? Baby bottle pops, baby bottle pops. It's little things it's little candy things. Anyway, it's the same amount of syllables, and what we do is Power Couples Rock, Power Couples Rock. Come on down, it's time for power. And so that's our big song that we sing on Sunday nights before we indulge in your.
Chris, we may have to take that from him.
That's right.
I think so. I
feel free. So how the heck did you get into that? Because you're an executive pastor, you're a corporate dude. How the heck did you get into this?
It was really interesting because over 15 years ago, probably more like 20 years ago now, my wife and I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we were going through some major financial challenges. So much so that the check was shorter than the month at this point. And we just prayed, fasted about it. It took us about 3 years to actually get to a financial freedom state. And in that fasting and praying, we felt that God was telling us that we needed to minister to other couples. And so for our 10th year, and our 15th year wedding anniversary, we actually hosted a retreat for about 25 couples in Tennessee. So we went from Cincinnati to Tennessee. And that weekend, we were just giving a lot of the couples who came just gifts and gratitude for everything that they have been doing in our lives. And from that event, Power Couples Rock was born. And the pastor that we had at the time said, I think that you guys have been ordained to do this. So he commissioned us to do it. So for 15 years, we've been doing Power Couples Rock. And then just recently, we added Chris and his beautiful wife, Sonia, to our roster. They're part of our squad. So that's how it came to be.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes.
So how did you, you just say two things struck out. First thing, I like the fact that you fasted, which is a good way to save money for the month. Just don't eat. Yeah. Because it's a big expense with food. So you did that. But second, hey, listen, you got to do what it takes. But you just offhandedly said, yeah, so we hosted a symposium for 25 couples. I tell you, I know speakers and authors and writers and trainers, they would, give their left arm to get 25 couples, 50 people into a room. How the heck did you get them all?
Well, I think it all started out with our relational capital that we had. We had built these relationships over years. And so for those 15 years, those couples that we poured into, they've poured into us. It was an easy ask for us to have them come. And one of the things that we did there is just get there. All we want you to do is get there, and we're taking care of everything else. So we took care of all of their meals. Every night, they actually had a surprise gift at their doors in the hotel that we actually had for them. And then we just did we brought in speakers and facilitated games and interactive activity that just kind of enhanced their relationship. And it just went over so well that our pastor at the time said, we just never experienced just the giving, just the heart that you all have for these couples that you are doing life with. And so I want to commission you guys to go out and continue to just kind of spread that energy to other couples, just to make sure that they can live the abundant life that marriage proposes to them. And that's what we did.
Yeah, amen. I could keep on going forever. Chris, you're chomping in the bit. You got a question here?
No, it's just, and so the show typically is for entrepreneurs, for small business people, for, executives at all kinds of levels and for sales. And one of the reasons why, Carlos, you're here, other than being just, an awesome dude, is I think a lot of people get caught up in this process and the scripts and the techniques and all of that stuff, which is absolutely important, right? But that whole know, like, and trust thing that happens in the process of you trying to sell something, it isn't just something, it just happens. It comes about at the core, which is relationships. It is building that trust, and it makes that sales process easier to do. And I know you also are a trainer. You're also a coach. You work with a lot of couples and all of that, and building relationships. And Dan, you are someone that is all about saying, if you want to be a better salesperson, be a better person.
Yeah, that's the kicker. And, a good person thinks about their spouse. A good person thinks about the most important union that they're ever going to have. My kids, when they were little, every kid does this. Your kids probably did it to you. Who do you like better? They ever do that to you? So, and of course, they go to my wife, and my son went to my wife. Mommy, who do you like better? And so my mother's, my wife's is the perfect woman. She's like, listen, we love you both the same. You have different stuff. Yeah. So he comes to me. He goes, Daddy, who do you love better? I said, Sophie. It's just, because I'm all about honesty. That's my. Yeah. But the thing is, if you said you were going through money troubles.
Yes.
Early.
Major financial challenge.
And I don't know a human being that hasn't had a period in their life that they did that. But and people go through business failures, and people go through illnesses, and people go through all challenges. Man, try to do all that stuff and get divorced. Try to do all that stuff and have marital issues in the house. So the number one thing that my dad used to say, listen, if you have your health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. And the opposite of hope is hopeless. Wow. And so if you're in a relationship and you get to that point that it's hopeless, it's impossible to fix all those other issues that happen in life. So if you had to give advice to somebody, a business person, a salesperson that's going through some struggles right now at home, what's the number one thing you could tell them to do that could get them out of their own way? And by the way, everybody, you can ask questions if you want. We're all about engagement here. Don't be cut with watching. You're allowed to, type. It's not going to kill you.
Hey, we're going to get to those. It's active, so we'll get to those. So Carlos,
So we've been married for almost 30 years. Next June 29th, it would be 30 years that my wife and I would have been married, and we've got two wonderful kids. And one of the things that we've done, and we've been intentional, is about investing in our relationship. And oftentimes what we see is when we're actually coaching other couples, they wait until they're at their rock bottom, or they're just hanging on by a thread, and they expect that what we can do for them in an hour should resolve the 6 or 7 years of challenges that they've gone through. And so it takes time to intentionally invest in your relationship. So what does that look like for us? So for us, every month, we actually have what we would call our board meeting or our hour of power. And we're sitting down, going through what's most important to us. That's in the areas of faith, family, finance, fitness, future, and fun. And we've established those goals for the year of what we're trying to accomplish. So we're tackling all of those issues and those goals as a team. And so that's one way that we're investing in our relationship. The second way is that we create a community of other couples that are doing life the way that we love doing life. So Chris and Sonia are like they're our best couple in the entire universe. That's what we say. But we create that community because you need that level of support if you want to have a healthy relationship. And then the last thing that we do is that we try to outserve each other. What can I do that's going to just make sure that my wife is taken care of? So I'm going to do my best to just make sure that I understand her love language. I give her space because her love language is quality time, right? So I want to give her space with herself, with her girlfriends, and with me. And so I got to study her, understand her. So those are the things that really help to foster a dynamic relationship that you have. So I would just recommend that people look at making sure that they study their spouse, outserve them, create a community, and then invest in your relationship.
Well, that is awesome.
I told you, man. I
tell you, because you know,
if you get fired up.
So, you know, studying your spouse isn't something that you have to tell them to do early on. But after a few years, you know, you kind of stop studying. But
more new after 29 years of marriage, right?
That's right.
But she's changing, she's evolving, she's transforming. Even her body is doing that. So I've got to be attuned to what that looks like. And her taste buds change and her interests change. So I just want to make sure that I'm tracking along with that. And it becomes an adventure. It really does.
Yeah, yeah.
We're doing some great things now that is even more exciting today than the first 2 or 3 years of our marriage.
Well, now you also mentioned something about your love language. I think I know a little bit about that, but how does somebody find out what somebody, you know, because listen, ask me, I'll lie to you all day long. What the hell do I know?
Right. So there's a very popular book out called The 5 Love Languages. And I forgot who the author is. So Chris, you may be able to look that up. But there are 5 love languages that are primary to a particular person. There may be one dominant love language, but they sometimes overlap. But the dominant love language that my wife has is called quality time. So she loves that time that she can spend by herself or spend that quality time with me and the family or her girlfriends. So I just have to be aware of when she's hungering or looking for that type of quality time. And for me, believe it or not, it's words of affirmation. That's the second one. Words of affirmation. For me, I need someone that will say, Carlos, great job. You're doing it. You can do it. Go for it. I love what you just said. I love what you did. That energizes me. That fuels me. Another one is physical touch. So someone loves that when they just lay a hand on your shoulder or hold hands or do the public display of affection out in the public. They love that. They feed off of that. They are energized by that. So that's 3 out of the 5 love languages. I don't know if you want me to keep going back. I just want to get an idea there.
Well, no, that's great, because, and the converse is, you know, sometimes you think that they're just like you, someone's just like you. So if you don't like being touched, like for whatever reason, I don't like being massaged. I'm bigger than the massage. I'm just not a big massage guy. I can't. Some people like the massage thing.
I love it.
Oh, Patrick Tinney. Patrick Tinney's going to be on the show next week. He's a rock star. He's from Canada. I didn't know that. We got another guy from Canada after that too. Only big hitters like you, Carlos, come on the show. By the way, I think you're doing awesome and it's great. I love what you've just said. Affirmations, baby. See, I'm working it.
We're getting tons of.
You didn't see my head go like this.
Actually, you and me were the same, baby. I'm the same thing. You tell me you want anything from me, just tell me how great I am. Listen to my podcast, do something, tell me that it was awesome. And what do you want? Can I just get
Speaking of heavy hitters, we're getting lots of comments here from our good buddy Mark Hayes, formerly Fox, and now just a fantastic worker, trainer, coach in the publicity arena. Some great comments here. And I love this. I love this comment here from Mark. The choice of a spouse is the most important decision you'll ever make. Love always wins.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff.
And that was really, that was, may I, Dan?
No, you're not allowed to.
I'll just say this for 30 seconds. That was the most important decision that I ever made in my life, is the spouse that I selected. And especially if you understand the narrative, the story, or the background that I had come from, that was very challenged relationships in my immediate family and my extended family. So it was very hard for me to see a very healthy relationship happen as I was growing up. So for me, selecting the spouse that God had given me and making sure that that was the lady that he wanted me to be with was very important. For me, I knew it would determine my success in life. And I'm not talking about material things, but I'm talking about abundant living and fulfillment in what I have. And I couldn't have selected a better person. I knew God chose her for me. I knew that when I married her. And there was several confirmations that actually happened to make me know that. And so I am thrilled that I have the privilege and opportunity to have a very happy, life-giving, successful marriage at this point, especially after 30 years.
I agree. And I think it was intentional why you do that. But here's an issue, because we deal with a lot of business people and a lot of my clients, and I've hired a lot of people in the past, and you could tell when something's going wrong at home in their work. It gets affected everywhere. And it's a pit that they could fall, and they start doing so poorly that you might have to replace them, which just exacerbates the home situation, makes that even worse. So when someone's going down that road, divorce doesn't just happen, this. It takes years to build up there. So when someone's getting into that zone, man, what did they do? I mean, you have to stop digging at one point. I got it, but after you stop digging, then what do you do? Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing, is that you should never even get to the place where you're digging.
I know, but you're there.
But if you're there, then I'm going to go back and subscribe to those things that I said. Look at the community that you're hanging out with. And oftentimes what we see is that people will actually start to move away from community. They will get on an island by themselves because they'll get in their own feelings, they'll get depressed. And so they feel like that their world is shrinking. But really what you should be doing is expanding your world to include other people or other marital relationships around you that have that same value. And what you will find is that, dude, we just went through that ourselves. Or here's some great advice. Here's how I'm going to support you.
Sorry to interrupt, but I got to get to the point here because it's killing me. Now, by the way, if Chach, if you're watching this is not about us. I'm doing this for the community. Right? So
you're asking for a friend, right?
But you say expand the community. How? What do you mean by that? I mean, what do I say? I'm going to call up a stranger and say, "Hey, I'm going through some trouble. Can you help me?" What do you do?
So that's where you go back to your trusted relationships. There's community everywhere. If you just look hard enough, you don't even have to look hard. There's community everywhere. So the church or the place that you worship, there's always community there. The place that you actually go and work, there's always community there. There's also friends that you do life with socially. There's always community there. What you have to discern is what I believe you have to discern is who are those trusted people that you've developed the relationship with. So it doesn't have to be 10, 12 couples. It can be 2 to 3 couples that you want to do life with and be intentional about it. And I guarantee you, if you do that, that will help to start you digging out of the hole that you put yourself in. And then the other thing that I would recommend is that a lot of times people don't maintenance their relationships. And there's a lot of ways that you can maintenance your relationship. So there's workshops, there's seminars, there's podcasts, there's long weekend getaways with other couples. There's so many things that you can do to nourish your relationship. It's just like, you've all heard this before. It's just like your car. If you don't give your car the oil change, if you don't rotate the tires, you're going to have, if you don't clean up the car and wash it out, what is that going to lead to? Your car not working, not being attractive. You don't want to drive it anymore, causing you all kind of problems. So I would say, make sure that you're making those types of investments in your relationship. And then the last thing I'll say is just to make sure that your relationship is the priority over everything else, over your children, over your kids. Over your children, over your work, over your extended family, over your church, over all of that. That's the most important relationship that you will ever, and the most intimate relationship that you'll ever have in your life. Don't blow it.
Yeah, I tell you what, community, back to your question, Dan, and what Carlos was talking about, it takes some vulnerability on the individual's part. And so, if you're in business, if you're in sales and you're wanting to build that community around that, and there's a lot, especially now with what's going on and in the pandemic, and there's a lot less physical person to person interaction. There just is. But there are a lot more opportunities to be joining masterminds, to be network. There's lots of people that are reaching out and trying to connect, but it does take vulnerability. I will tell you, I was very hesitant about joining Carlos and Katherine's community because it's like, I don't do very well, kind of in these types of situations, because I was a very kind of protective person, especially as it relates to personal stuff. But after a while, here I was a year later, and I'm helping to lead the group. I'm doing all, and I just didn't know that it could be inspirational. And I don't know if I told you this, Dan, but here's how good this guy is at sales. So I just wanted to be involved in what Carlos and Katherine were doing. And at the time I was with Sony in the music business, and I was like, let's do something playlists. And we tried that. And finally I was like, what we need to do, dude, is we need to do a podcast. Or no, this is how I said, you need to do a podcast. Right. And Carlos was like, yes, that's absolutely, we've been talking about doing that. Let's do it. And can you help us do that? And of course I'm like, yeah. Let me figure this out. I can get, the mics and figure out the hosting platforms, all the podcast stuff. Right. And so when I'm in the process of doing this, he says to me, what I think would be a great idea is if you and Sonia, my wife, could be on the podcast. And of course I'm like, oh yeah, of course. In my mind, I'm thinking we're going to be the guests on the podcast. Okay, cool. Yeah. The first podcast, we're going to go. So I set everything up in the studio. I've got the recorder ready. We're in there. We're talking about the topic and everything. Hit record, and we're introduced as the co-hosts of Power Couples Rock podcast. I'm not just a guest. I'm in it. And I'm like, like picking up the needle on the record, right? Wait a minute. We're not just guests. We're doing this. And Carlos was like, yes, we are doing this. And here it is a year and a half later, and it's just been awesome. Yeah. I feel like we're getting free marriage coaching and inspiration the entire time. It just really is a great podcast. But it wouldn't have happened without Carlos's relational capital that he had built with us, and that trust that I had to get me over that and actually into this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he instilled the confidence in you by throwing you in there and doing it, and you're the right people to do it. It's very important. So that's why I say, if you want to be a better salesperson, be a better person. That's the whole thing, being part of that community and having that union, and have people, trust. How your kids come up to you and when they said that thing, who do you like best? I told the kids, I said, guys, if you really want to know the truth, it's your mom. I go, both of you guys are going to leave me eventually. I mean, that's the idea. She's got to stay. She's number one. And you would think that they would be put off by that. It was the exact opposite. They felt secure that their family unit would be intact forever.
Yes.
Because of their mom. And so I think it's that important. And that affects your whole outward, the way you approach other people in the business world.
Mm-hmm. It really does.
It's really, that character, that starts from home. And so I think it's very important to use that and understand when you're meeting other people in business. I always say, you don't do business with a bank. You don't do business with a company. You do business with a person at the bank. You do business with a person at a company. And that person, if you could see them as a human who's going through the same stuff that you're going through, it gives you an unfair advantage over the punk that's calling them up on the phone saying, what's going to take to get you into this car?
That's right.
Because you touch people, and that starts from home.
Carlos.
Time. I got one more. More time than not, when I'm doing a deal and there's some questionable thing, but here, going on. My wife brings me back to reality and says, "Well, is that something you would like for them to do to us?"
That just reminds me, and I love the book of life called the Bible, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I try to subscribe by 3 main relationship opportunities, right? Relationship integrity or intent, and then relational capital, and then relational trust. And that's, if you want to call it the sales pitch, you can. But to me, I've earned the right when I walk through those steps to just ask what I would call my friends at that point to actually do business with me. So being a business consultant and also being a marriage coach, they actually cross paths with some of the same skill sets that I'm trying to use and those relationships that I actually have. But that relational intent or integrity is so important because it really questions my character and integrity to understand, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is the person that I'm trying to do business with, are they going to win as well? And am I serving them appropriately? So I have to check my motives even before I walk into that type of sales or relationship opportunity that's actually there. And then once I do that, I can move to relational capital. How am I building a genuine friendship, a genuine business relationship with that person? What are their needs? What are they looking for? And I'm not trying to pressure them into anything, but I'm a problem solver. That's what we do as salespeople, relationship people. We solve problems. And so if you don't get to understand that person and know that person, not just from a business person perspective, but from a personal perspective. And I'm not trying to say you need to get really, really personal, but what makes that person tick? What's most important to them? What keeps them up at night? And when you can do that and they can see your genuineness in that, then you can move from relational capital to relational trust. And that's what we've been trying to do here, is just to build relational trust with people. And that then gives you the right to say, hey, I want to ask for you to do business with me. Can you help me out here? Would you mind doing this for me? And so when I walk through those steps, it's very rare that I get someone that says, I just can't help you out. I can't do business with you, because I've gone through the process of the genuine intent, the capital, and the relational trust to make sure that that happens well.
So it just goes from there, and that's it. Well, I think you can get there. And how long does that take?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? But for me, it takes me about 18 months or so.
18 months.
That's a slow roast, baby.
But here's the thing: is that it's a slow roast. You're in a, what do you call those crock pots?
A slow cooker?
Slow cooker, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a
microwave.
I want the Instant Pot. So,
yeah, they don't get cooked all the way through. So it can get cold. It don't taste as good. It's not marinated as well. But if you put it in a crock pot and you marinate that, oh my God, that is just the best tasting food you could ever have.
I agree, and it tastes better. You know, and listen, it always tastes better the second day too. It just keeps tasting good. And that's great with relationships. But when you're trying to start, and people that are going to business and you're looking to make sales, there's also a time where you have to say, you know what, it's probably not the right person for me. You know what, you're probably not the right client for me. Yes. And when does that happen? When is it time to turn and walk away? And in terms of a customer or a prospect. And a prospect for a spouse.
Yes. So a person will always give you signals. You just have to discern what those signals are. So if they're not truly returning your calls, because for me, there's business out there for everybody. There's a ton of business out there. And so if that person is not what we would call like a person of peace that will actually welcome you into their space, then you can just kind of move on because there's someone else out there. But what you can do is if they're not returning your phone calls, they're being pretty short with you, their body language is just not agreeing with you, and you know that, then it's okay. You don't have to not be their friend. That's just not a prospect for you. And I've got several people that, you know, all right, we're not doing business at this point, but my thing is I genuinely like you as a person. You may be doing business with someone else. That's okay. I'm okay with that. You may be happy with that. If there's any kind of advice I can give you, any way I can support you, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what I say. I'm going to outserve you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to outserve you. And so if I can make sure that you're doing well, I'm okay, because I know on the other side, there's other business people that want to do business with me.
And that's the whole thing. Give value first. And, you know, when I first got married, my dad said, none of this 50-50 stuff. He says, you give 90 and hope you get 10% back.
Yes.
you know, and if the other person follows that same advice, I mean, you got no chance to lose. It's impossible.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
But in a business situation, same thing. Give 90 up front, and you'll know very quickly if you're getting some back. And if you're not, turn hightail and run. Hey, Stoner, we got any questions?
Yeah, there's lots of comments here, and I know we're running close to time, but I want to get to some of these questions. And Carlos, this kind of relays into what we were talking about, having the if you're a person of business, you're a salesperson, having what's going on at home right to help you in that. And we were talking a lot about marriage. And there's some great comments here. Thank you for everybody who's done it. I really want to highlight some of the commentary here from Diane Bogino as well as Mark Hayes. So Diane mentioned that your childhood relationships make a huge impact on your marriage selection. I don't think we would argue with that.
Chris, I'll just say this, that I would recommend, and I'm glad Diane said that, I would recommend even before you get married that you go through some type of personal counseling so that you can actually identify what those triggers are or what those challenges have been in your childhood so that you don't carry that into that relationship. And that's what I did with me and my wife. And I understood that there was a major fear of commitment for me because of my childhood. And I needed to overcome that before I actually entered into that relationship. And then I needed to make some transformational changes on the way that I viewed marital relationships, that they were not temporary relationships that I was entering into, but this was going to be the only relationship that I promised myself that I would enter. So Diane, thank you for saying
and that leads into the commentary here that Diane's talking about. Having been an abused child, you are denied community and never taught how to create it. So there's a gap to be filled in society, and it's kind of what you were talking to there. Do you have any?
I can see. Can you guys visualize so many people that are adults now that are carrying so many backpacks right now? The backpack of depression, of shame, of being abused, of just, not having community. They're just carrying that, and they carry that in their relationships. And that's why they have so many challenges going on, because they don't have enough time. They don't take the time to unpack that.
That's right. And I had read a long time ago, there was this identical twins, guys that were brought up by two alcoholic parents. And one of the kids grew up and he became a teetotaler, and the other one grew up and became a raging alcoholic. And when they were asked, why did you turn out this way? They both gave the same answer. They said, what would you do if you had parents like we had? And so ultimately there's a choice. And if people could turn the light and say, either I'm going to follow in that path or I'm going to do the exact opposite, you could make a roll. So you can change, even if there's challenges on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Stoner. We got to do rapid fire, baby. We're losing.
It's too deep.
All right.
And Mark's commentary here on Diane is, yes, we don't pay enough attention to the children that are hurting. My mom was in child protective services and said she never had enough resources, even when she worked in affluent areas.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And if I can just address that, Mark, it's really good. Even if she didn't have enough resources, what I oftentimes see, and I tell my children this as well, is that it's not that you don't have enough resources. Sometimes you may not know where to go to get the resources because you may be really stuck into your own world, that's all you can see is as far as the front door and not beyond that. But I really believe that God gives us so many resources that if we just really trust him and we look at, pray for that, resources are available. And so I am not discounting what Mark said, because in the place that his mom was in, I could understand where she would feel landlocked based on her situation. And I'm just here to just encourage anybody that says, you know what, I don't have any resources. I don't have any choices. There are always choices. There are always creative ways that you can do it. Even today, just this morning. So I took my son to actually get his license renewed. I'll say that, renewed. Get his license renewed. Well, he gets to the driver's place, right? So they tell him, well, sir, you can't get them renewed today because the document that we gave you that's online, you need to have it printed out so that we can actually scan it. So he said, well, can I email it to you? They said, no, you got to have it printed out. So he comes back to the car and he was like, oh my God, we got to go all the way back home now. And I got to print this out. Then I got to come back up here. I said, okay, hold on, because there's a creative way that we can do this. How can we make that happen? Who do we know in this area? So we figured it out. There was one business that we knew that could print it out 5 minutes away, print it out, came back up there in 5 minutes, he got his license renewed. But there's always resources that are available. Stop, take the time, listen, meditate, and it's there. So I'm glad Mark said that. I'm so glad he said that.
Well, that's awesome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming here today. You made me a better person. And here's the idea. I think I'm going to just bring this all together. I have a client that someone I'm working with right now who's talking about changing careers and changing all sorts of stuff or whatever. And the big thing we came around with is that it's okay. It's actually exciting to move towards something. But it's terribly debilitating if you're just running away and you have nothing to go to. And so what happens if in some sense, I just got to get out of this situation. I got to get, change jobs. I got to leave this company. I got to do whatever. But you have nothing to go towards. You're going to wind up just like in an empty space. What it does is encourage you to realize what you do have with this job. You do have with this spouse. And very often, most of the time, you'll find out that they're at least paying you, that there's someone at least home, that your clothes are getting clean, that everything is in order. You have a chance to make whatever you have better. And it's a lot easier than starting from zero. And if you take the time to put forth the effort to go after that job or go after that person with the same vigor and vitality that you did the first time, you'll find that magic can be reborn once again and make today, the place where you are right now, the best place at the best time and the best opportunity for a successful future. You do that today, and you'll make it your best day ever. You're the best. I'm the Deej. Just go get them today.